Some wounds don't bleed outside. Some battles happen in silence. Some people master survival, but never learn healing. Let it breathe. Everybody got secrets hidden behind smiles. Family portraits covering trauma for miles. Mama stayed strong, but her spirit looked tired. Daddy full of rage, whole house felt wired. Children in the hallway hear the yelling at night. Growing up too fast, thinking chaos is life. And pain moved quiet through the bloodline deep. Somebody crying every night, they can't sleep. Talk about it. People say pray, but they don't teach healing. Tell you keep pushing while your soul's still bleeding. Everybody wearing masks just to function. Whole generation scared of real discussion. How you love somebody when you broken inside? How you carry peace when your inner child died? How we normalize damage and call it tradition, then wonder why the family losing its vision. Facts. I know the storm feels endless. I know the nights get cold, but pain ain't your identity and broken ain't your soul. Even if your voice shake when you speak, the wounded still deserve peace. Some people punch walls, some people punch souls, some people lose control cause nobody made them whole. And hurt turned to anger, anger turned cold, and silence starts spreading like a sickness in the home. Men told man up, never taught emotion. Women carrying worlds while they drowning in oceans. Everybody posting strength for the internet, meanwhile real life falling into deep neglect. And social media turn pain entertainment. Everybody got opinions but nobody contained. Need therapy, prayer, accountability too. Not fake love, perform for a digital view. Somebody listening right now feeling trapped, trying to hold together while they soul collapse. If nobody told you, let you hear me clear tonight. You deserve a home that feels safe at night. Healing ain't weakness, leaving pain ain't weakness, crying ain't weakness. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing a soul can do. Stronger than the author, no weapon formed against peace gon' prosper. And even with stars running deep, grace still grows flowers, the concrete. The healing starts now. The healing starts now. Some wounds don't bleed outside. Some battles happen in silence. Some people master survival, but never learn healing. Yeah. Everybody got secrets hidden behind smiles. Family portraits covering trauma for miles. Mama stayed strong, but her spirit looked tired. Daddy full of rage, whole house felt wired. Children in the auto, heated yelling at night. Growing up too fast, thinking chaos is life. And pain moved quiet through the bloodline deep. Somebody crying every night, they can't sleep. Talk about it. People say pray, but they don't teach healing. Say you keep pushing while your soul's still bleeding. Everybody wearing masks just to function. Whole generation scared of real discussion. How you love somebody when you broken inside? How you carry peace when your inner child died? How we normalize damage and call it tradition, then wonder why the family losing its vision. Facts. I know the storm feels endless. I know the nights get cold, but pain ain't your identity and broken ain't your soul. We don't gotta live like this no more, crying on the bathroom floor. God didn't make us just to survive. We were born to heal, born to rise. No more fear, no more shame, no more carrying generational pain. Even if your voice shake when you speak, the wounded still deserve peace. Some people punch walls, some people punch souls, some people lose control cause nobody made them whole. And hurt turned to anger, anger turned cold, and silence starts spreading like a sickness in the home. Men told man up, never taught emotion. Women carrying worlds while they drowning in oceans. Everybody posting strength for the internet, meanwhile real life falling into deep neglect. And social media turn pain entertainment. Everybody got opinions but nobody contain them. Need therapy, prayer, accountability too, not fake love. Perform for a digital view. Somebody listening right now feeling trapped, trying to hold together while they so collapse. If nobody told you lately, hear me clear tonight. You deserve a home that feels safe at night. Healing ain't weakness, leaving pain ain't weakness, crying ain't weakness. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing a soul can do. Than the author, no weapon formed against peace gon' prosper. And even with stars running deep, grace still grows flowers, the concrete. The healing starts now. The healing starts now.
Hey y'all, what's up? What's up? What's up? It's your girl Golden, and I am back, y'all, with another live. So let's get into it and talk about it a little bit. So I came across a very great conversation and live um, over on Roland Martin's channel, and he was having an excellent discussion with Alanya Vincent. And I had put a few clips of that in some of my previous videos. And I said this conversation is way too important to just incorporate in a clip only. So what I decided to do, and I'll be having my girl here with me, that we'll be doing a four-part series breaking down the entire conversation because all of it from beginning to end, from the rooter to the tutor, I believe is very important and needs to be heard and talked about. And we may have thoughts and feelings and comments or opinions to give from some of that conversation. So what we're gonna do is do a four-part series of that. And today is part one, right? So it'll be the first 45 minutes of the conversation. And in between, of course, we'll make our commentary. And everyone who would like to join or has joined already, we always be kicking it in the chat. So we're gonna listen to this, y'all, because there's a lot of healing that I believe is necessary for all of us. Myself first, because I always have to look in the mirror at myself first before I speak about anything else. Um, and for many of us that may be going through silent struggles and things of that nature in our lives that we always don't portray to the public is still happening. And, in order to work through those things, I believe that you gotta, number one, admit that they're going on, and number two, find healthy ways to heal and combat some of these traumas and issues, that you may be experiencing in your life. So let me tell y'all what we're going to be talking about on this four-part series, right? So, like I said, thank y'all for joining me. I know Mama Warrior is here, Imani is here, and she'll be joining me with commentary as co-host as well. So we'll be hearing from her in just a moment. But we're entering a space today that is very heavy, y'all. So you'll see a lot of trigger warnings. And we also are going to have some, resources, numbers, and websites and things of that nature that we'll be posting. Because the first part of this conversation is wrapped around, unfortunately, violence, specifically domestic violence, right? But we're talking about a plethora of things. It's just in this first part of the conversation that is what's touched on first. And this is wrapped around, and they are speaking, yes, about Black women and Black men, but we know that this doesn't just apply to a certain race or, person. This can happen, these things can happen, and these experiences can happen with anyone. So everyone is welcome to come and join and listen in. So we're not just here just to merely observe this video today, but what we really want to do is perform, like, I guess more so like of a spiritual autopsy, right? When the generational cycles that have impacted communities for far too long, specifically, yes, they are talking about the Black community, but the things that are being talked about have impacted many communities, many groups of people and races of people. So, it's never exclusion when it comes to that. It just happens that they are talking about, around the Black community. So, over these next four segments, we will journey from the historical roots of trauma through the systemic silence of our communities into the undressing of pain of the men, and finally, most importantly, towards a practical blueprint that can help lead us to, a peaceful, a healthy, and a total healing if you are wrestling with or dealing with any of these experiences. So this is going to be a little bit more than commentary. It's meant to be a restorative call to action for our collective spirits. Like, there's a lot of work to be done with all of us, starting with me first, because I have to start on myself first. So I'm not pointing any fingers. So I invite you all to pull up a chair, open your heart, and listen as we navigate through this together. So, like I said, this is a four-part breakdown, and today we are doing part one, and we'll be talking about, like the roots of the trauma, DV, things like that. Heavy topics, okay? So I will be putting up the trigger warnings. Let's go ahead and welcome Imani to the stage because she will be having the conversation with me as we listen and watch some of this conversation with Alana and Roland. So what's up, Imani? How you doing, girl? You can come on in.
Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
Doing good, doing good.
How was your birthday yesterday?
Oh, girl, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. It started out pretty busy, and mommy like because I had to take my boy to the dentist show. But after that, the rest of the evening was very great, and I spent some time, my babe. So we had a good time.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, we talked about this the other day, Golden and I, and we really felt that these topics deserved more of a focus and a longer conversation and not just some short clips and some sound bites. So we decided to come back to it. So those of you who were here the other day may have heard this, but we wanted to have a lengthier conversation about it. And as Golden said, DV does not discriminate. So this is not just about the Black community. This is about a lot of communities. And in our recent times when, we had lockdowns, I think some of you may have read that the amount of DV incidents increased because people were really locked down. Some people were locked down with their partners 24/7. Um, my biggest fright was waking up and seeing myself in the mirror without makeup. That was frightening every day. But
Right. Oh my
um,
God.
I used to say, "Who is that woman?" But no, apart from that, yeah, I mean, it's a serious topic, and there were some serious incidents, and there was a marked increase in DV. Like I said, people being thrown together forcibly created situations that people hadn't faced because normally people may be at work 24/7, one may be at home, the other may be out at work. So this is it doesn't discriminate, it's for all communities, but we just
Right.
happen to be looking at it from the Black perspective today, but it applies to everyone,
I
and
agree.
that's
I
about it.
absolutely agree. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. It's great having you here. And hey, Star, what's up, Star? Mama Warrior's here. So yeah, anybody else, if you want to come on in, come on in. We're gonna get right into it. We're gonna play little bits and pieces, right, of the conversation and stop every so often to do commentary per usual. And so let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So we'll start off with audio, and I'm gonna go ahead and play that for y'all so you can hear a little bit of what's going on. Um, and then yeah, we'll be in and out with commentary, and of course we can keep the commentary going consistently within the chat if you like to join. So let me go ahead and press play. I'm gonna mute down, and I'll meet y'all in the chat.
Folks, to understand what has been going on when it comes to this issue of domestic violence in the Black community. Let's be real clear, domestic violence impacts all communities, but we center African Americans. The last 60 days, this is a snapshot of some of these stories. April 19th, Shamar Elkins, a former National Guard member struggling with mental health problems and suicidal ideation, killed 7 of his children and their cousin in Shreveport, Louisiana. Dr. Serena Fairfax, killed by her estranged husband, former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. That was on April 16th. In Texas, Tynese Friday, shot and killed by her husband in front of their children after she filed for divorce on April 10th. Janelle Collins' son, Lee Collins III, killed her and her mother, Mary Major, on April 6th in Louisiana. Nancy Mateer Bowen's body was discovered in her Coral Springs, Florida home on April 1st. allegedly killed by her husband. He has now been charged with murder. She was vice mayor of that town. On March 1st, Precious Johnson was fatally shot by her husband while cradling their newborn baby in a hospital in Birmingham, Alabama. In Chicago, Barbara Deere was killed by her son on April 14th. 88-year-old Daniel Graves' body was found in Denise Graves' body was found in the basement of her Chicago home on April 7th. Her son, Kavon Works, is the suspect. In North Carolina, Pastor Tammy McCollum was killed by her husband on April 6th. We can go on and on and on. Mynika Scott, killed by her estranged husband in Georgia on April 1st. 23-year-old Ashante Allen's body found on April 16th in Houston, and a boyfriend charged with her murder. Devonta Curtis, beaten to death in a Chicago apartment by her boyfriend. That was April 5th. Tamika Kamwani, killed in New Jersey by her ex-fiance on March 27th. Victoria Alexander, a nurse in New Jersey, killed inside her workplace by her estranged husband on April 13th. Alonda Cuffey, a postal worker in Florida, killed by her stepfather on April 19th. Hundreds more women have been killed by someone who promised to love them. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been at least 159 cases of family annihilation or murder-suicide by gun so far in 2026. Nearly 20 people are physically abused per minute. More than 10 million people are abused every year. 1 out of 4 women and 1 out of 7 men experience domestic violence. Some 10 million children are witnesses to some form of domestic violence. We can go on and on with these stats. What does this say? It says that we have a significant problem in this country when it comes to anger, when it comes to resentment, when it comes to the issues that go on between couples. How do we deal with it? How do we control our anger? How do we deal with our past? How do we deal with PTSD, our trauma? How do we deal with all of those things? You throw in what's happening with the economy. Last year, more than 800,000 African Americans, men and women, losing their jobs. Now, the pressures of the economy also comes into play as well. And so we've been talking to a number of experts for the past couple of weeks, and we want to continue the conversation tonight with Iyanla Van Zandt. Many people know her for her work on television on numerous shows, really delving into interpersonal relationships between men, women, and children. And she joins us here in our Black Star Network studio. So I'm going to walk right on over and begin our conversation. And so, Iyanla, glad to have you here in our house. Glad to be here. Glad to be here. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Are we straight? Can y'all hear? Are we good? All right. Let's get right into this. It's a lot of places we can start. And what first jumps out is I've looked at the discussion of the last couple of weeks, and sisters against brothers, brothers against sisters. I had one. I'm gonna start this. We had a sister who hit me the day of we did the initial story of what happened with the Fairfaxes in Virginia, and she said, "This is on men. This is on men. Brothers got to deal with this." And I said, "You're right." About 4 or 5 days later, she said, "This is only going to work if men apologize to women. Brothers got to understand the pain that sisters are going through." And I said to her, I said, "Well, if there has to be a conversation, brothers have to acknowledge sisters' pain. Sister got to acknowledge brothers' pain." I said, "Because both have to heal." "No, they got to do it first." And I said to her, "If it's going to be a pain Olympics, then we're never going to be able to have the conversations that we need to have."
Yeah. That is not a function of who. First of all, thank you for having me, Roland. I was really honored when you called me because, you know, I'm not talking about social media ticks and tacks. I'm talking about healing. And the one thing I want to say is throughout this country and everywhere, we're not taught how to heal. We just aren't.
Right.
We're taught, you know, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. We're taught how to get a job. We're taught how to make other people happy, but we're not taught how to heal. And back to your opening comment, this thing about them against us and us against them, it's us, it's them. All of us are descendants of slaves. All of us carry a wound that has never been acknowledged, We carry grief that has never had a funeral. We carry sadness that was never given a name. And yet we try to function in this system, in this society that was really built to demoralize, diminish, dehumanize us. I need people to understand, and I know we have a hard time. Black men are not the enemy of Black women. And Black women are not the enemy of Black men. But that is how it's been set up.
Right.
And that's how we seem to be stepping into it. But culturally, we are a communal people. I was thinking about this today as I was driving. Our ancestors, they took care of each other, but not in a codependent way. If the brothers went out and they slaughtered a boar, that boar was cooked in a big pot in the middle of the village. So somebody slaughtered it, somebody skinned it, somebody, opened it up. One family may have brought the greens, the tomatoes, the whatever they had. And that stew was cooked in the middle of the village and everybody got some. But it was the family that needed it that got the fur. And they didn't fight over it. Okay, they need the fur this time. That is what's in our DNA, in our blood, and we don't live like that anymore. We live againstness because that's what we are taught, and that's what's killing us.
Well, it's interesting as you were talking about that because I joke often. I grew up in Houston, 8 blocks from my grandparents. Every Sunday we were at their house. They had 8 kids. Those 8 kids had 39 kids. Those 39 kids had like 70 plus. Those 70 plus kids had like 120, 130. 1,500 square foot house. Everybody got fed. But the thing is, we were there every Sunday.
Yeah.
And when I think about now, when I go to LA and we get together and I have a dinner party, people are like, oh man, this is awesome. I was like, and when you coming back, I said, y'all live here. Y'all can call each other. And I think what has happened is we now are so isolated that this idea of community has been so fractured, and we're now operating and living in silos. And when you talk about a lot of brothers, and I know a lot of brothers, they are silent, they don't talk. And what I've often said is you've got to create spaces where they can talk and trust among one another. Sisters are more likely to do that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we've been talking about even in the last couple of weeks, that you got to create an opportunity for somebody. If they are experiencing pain, they're going through something and they're not trusting therapy, the starting process has to be, how can I communicate, commune, and get off, as we say, get it off your chest and now begin to work through whatever that is, because you can't deal with it in silence.
Well, again, it's I don't care who you are as a man of color. And I say man of color because I'm African-American, Latin, and Native American. So I say man of color. I speak specifically to descendants of Africans. Our ancestors survived in the bottom of the ship laying on top of each other. We got condos and townhouses and we killing ourselves, But unfortunately, the young people, they don't understand that history. But if you are a descendant of African, if you are a man of color, you've got to understand that in the fiber, in the fabric of this society, you are demeaned, diminished, dehumanized, and devalued. Just in the fibers of the society. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I know you're alpha and there's Q's and some of us went to college. Well, I'm talking about your DNA. Mm-hmm. And then there are the inherited things, the inherited scripts, the inherited wounds that some of us are able to live above and beyond and some of us aren't. If you are a man in this country, a Black man in the United States of America, you carry a wound. Now, how you've mastered it or denied it or accommodated it or tolerated it, eventually that wound, simply by your history, is going to come forward. Now, your wound is one thing. The harm you cause is something else. So we're looking at the harm.
All right, y'all. Y'all know we got to take certain pauses and breaks or whatnot so we can do some commentary in between So, right there, just even from the beginning of that conversation, and don't worry, hold on, hang on, because they're having a conversation about men and women. So, this is not a bashing type conversation where it's just one sided. But just listening to that conversation alone and that last statement that she made, as far as when it comes to, and we can only speak on what we are, who we are. For everyone, this may apply differently, even if you are of a different race. You still may have some of those experiences as well. And you may have things to dig into when it comes to your background and your race. But right now, they're speaking on, yes, specifically black and brown people. So when she makes that statement, especially in this country. And yes, she did reference the United States. Okay. Within this country, yes, men, she's speaking about right now, but she'll also get into the women. We carry around wounds that have been passed down to us, honestly. We may not have been directly affected by some of these things, but we still are in some way affected and therefore hold and carry and walk around with wounds. And we'll get in, when they get into deeper conversation, traumas as well, that those wounds probably have derived from, that we have not fully dealt with, healed, bandaged, or any of those things. And so that does lead to us walking around in the world with certain mindsets, with certain fears, with certain phobias, with certain triggers um, of the kind, because of those wounds that are unhealed. And so, I think that's a really good conversation to listen to. What are some of your thoughts on this, Imani? What we heard just so far?
Well, the first thing that was a shocker were the stats for just this year, and the fact that you have this is not only going on between husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends, but we have violence, children against parents. Those stats were quite shocking, um, initially. Um, but as they went on to talk about why the causes, yeah, they talked about untreated trauma. They talk about the fact that there's a lot of emotional suppression, talk about inherited pain, which comes, it's generational, and it's not only amongst Black people, it's amongst a lot of communities. They talk about the hopelessness of the economic situation, current economic situation. I spoke earlier about the lockdown and the pressures of people being locked down together, and the fact that people have they don't have healthy coping mechanisms. Um, and there's a real big breakdown in some areas of community support systems. And the problem is, it has turned into, in a lot of instances, the oppression Olympics. It's like the men versus the women, or the women versus the men. And it's really about people wanting to assign blame, and that is not the answer. um, the answer is, violence is never the answer. That's standard. But it's about the accountability. It's about how people regulate their emotions. It's about getting the support and the therapy. It's about finding safe spaces. And I think one thing that was um, hinted at is that women do tend to have more safe spaces. I mean, women tend to do a lot together. They go out for lunch. If one person's been dumped, everybody's been dumped, and let's talk about it. Some women, that is, they have a lot of friends or family, and we have a lot more. Or we express our emotions differently from men, and for men, it's not really expected to be as emotional. Um, but also, some of us need to confront. the generational stuff that we've seen from our parents, from our grandparents, and some of that is passed down to us, as you know, and some of us learn from it and some of us actually just repeat it. So yeah, that's what I got from the first part, really.
Okay. I agree with everything you said. And hey, Bub and B Love have come in. So thank y'all so much for coming in and joining us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. You know, I do believe it's very important. And like I said, yeah, it's predominantly a discussion around, black community, but the discussion carries over. It doesn't matter your race or your community. The discussion can apply to all races, all people that have had these experiences. So this is a point of healing. But I don't want to do too much talking. I'm gonna go ahead and get back into the video. Let's listen to a bit more here, and then we'll take a commentary break in just a moment. But we will be talking with y'all in the chat. All right, here we go.
Harm that's being caused, and we are not really dealing with the wound. Because if you only deal with the behavior, if you only deal with the harm, then you're never going to be able to heal the wound. And where we are right now with the wahala and the conflagration that's going on, we have to go to the wound. And most of our brothers, they don't have the language. They think they don't have the time. I love when people, I don't have the time. But when your butt get locked up, you do that time, don't you?
Right.
So,
I thought about that when I was at my church in Dallas. They were doing free blood pressure checks. No, I'm good. I don't have time. And I said, yeah, but you have a stroke. Trust me, you're going to slow down.
Right.
And you need to know right now.
Right.
And so that's a perfect example of, we say we don't have time, but you have to confront your stuff. Whether you're a man or a woman, you're going to have to confront your stuff. Otherwise, you're carrying that on and it's going to come out.
Passing it on.
In any relation, it's going to come out.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Of course, men are taught, suck it up and move on. Don't show weakness. Don't ask for help.
Don't be a punk.
Don't be a punk. Oh, my goodness.
Don't even smile in photos.
But what's happening now, Roland, is the world is shifting so fast that those old coping mechanisms aren't working anymore. And men, all men, but particularly black men, we are, Lord have mercy, y'all are, they are. I say we because those are my brothers and I'm a mother, but we are, it's okay for black men to be aggressive in sports, in this, don't let nobody punch you. Don't let nobody punk you in the schoolyard. It's okay for that. But we don't teach them the balance. We don't teach them how to be vulnerable and safe. We don't teach them how to ask for help and not be judged. And all of that stuff in the way the world is speeding up.
And now you got cats, you being sassy, you being feminine. That's feminine.
Yeah.
No, first of all, if you were showing vulnerability, that's actually a strength. That's not weakness.
No.
That's a strength.
But see, anger eventually becomes intimidation. Fear eventually becomes aggression. Sadness becomes withdrawal or isolation or escapism into anything. Now, we're talking about men, right? Are we going to get to the women? Because all these men had a woman in their life that raised them. So we got to look at how we infected our sons, not from a place of heated judgment. And that's why we haven't been able to have the healing conversation. Because the minute you begin to speak to the issues as they are, people feel attacked or they feel judged and they go into meltdown. But we have been conditioned to accommodate dysfunction. Roland, I lived for 9 years in a marriage with a man that beat me every time the sun came up. And I stayed for 9 years telling myself that my kids needed a father. And it wasn't until my son explained to me, I'll tell you the situation. My husband was 6'4", 260. Okay. On a good day, I'm 5'6". As I get older, I may be 5'5.5". But he's explained, he wasn't grown when he shared with me a situation where my husband literally had me on the floor and was choking me. And I'm screaming to my son, he was the oldest, call the police. And my husband is saying to him, don't you move. So he's watching this man, wasn't his father, but he was raised as he was his father. He's watching this man who he considers his father, choking his mother on the floor. And she's gasping for air. Call the police, help me call the police. And this 6'4", 260 man daddy is saying, don't you move. My son grew up. I never processed that with him because I was busy processing my own being choked, okay? But that's what he grew up with. That's an unaddressed trauma. Mm-hmm. How many men saw that? How many men, young men today saw that or something similar? So we've been conditioned, programmed, expected to accommodate dysfunction and to silence our pain. Like I said, grief that never had a funeral. Never had it. And then to go out in the world and function and make money for other people and make other people happy and please a woman and raise a kid and brush your teeth. So we're going to find ways to escape. And we've got to learn. Here's the message that I have for men. You got to learn to feel. And then name what you're feeling. Unfortunately, most men, Black men, are emotionally illiterate. They know happy, they know sad, they know angry. They may know irritated. They don't know embarrassment. They may not know anxiety, frustration. They may not know elation or bliss. They have a very limited emotional vocabulary. So they know anger, they know it's bad or wrong, but when the nervous system becomes overwhelmed, you got Fairfax, a man who shoots 7 of his 8 babies. How does a father shoot a 3-year-old?
And what's interesting about that, when his mother was interviewed, she said, I told my son, you can get through this. You can beat this. And he said, paraphrasing, I think the demons are too strong.
Yeah.
He had spent a week in the VA hospital. And this is not judging her, but when she says, son, you can beat this, and she mentioned prayer, this is when I say, I understand prayer. I believe in prayer. I believe in God, believe in Jesus, but God also put people here.
Black therapists.
Have put experts here, and it's not enough to say to somebody, you can get through this. You can't get through something if you don't even know what the hell you even are trying to get through.
What are you feeling? What are you thinking? Where did it come from? Who knows how that trauma my son experienced at 9 has showed up in a variety of ways in his life? Who knows what this young man experienced in his childhood? Wasn't he in the war? Wasn't he a vet or something?
Well, he was in the military. He had not gone overseas, but his mother talked about when she was on crack.
Okay.
When she was a drug addict and he was 16 and having to experience that. Now, with that, this is what I got from a lot of sisters. You're centering the man. You should be centering the woman and the kids. Roland, that's excuses. And so when I talk about mental health, it's like, that's excuses. And what I'm saying is, I'm not dismissing it. I'm not coddling anybody. I'm not offering an excuse, but in order for us to confront the issue, and because the desire is for women not to be killed, for children not to have to experience it.
But the desire is for men not to do that.
Right. So if that's our desire and that's our goal, then we have to sit down and go, okay, why is this person so mad and so angry? What are these demons? What did you experience? What do you like? You literally have to deal with that. And I keep saying that if men commit 96% of all domestic violence, we have got to confront what is going on between the ears of these men.
Well, again, we live in a society that and the average day, well, first, let me just say this out loud, because we have been desensitized to the magnitude of mental imbalance, mental health issues, because we're looking at it every single day and calling it something else. The leader of the free world has a diminished mental capacity. And we are going along every single day acting like this,
Right.
what we are seeing is normal. We do the same thing when we know Uncle Bubba drink too much, or when Cousin Freddie is nodding off. We have been desensitized to even see or address. Sometimes we don't have the language. Sometimes we don't have the tools. Sometimes, do y'all see Uncle Bubba peeing in the flower pot? Are we going to say anything? Do y'all not see that the leader of the free world has diminished mental capacity, and that people have joined in his story that he's the most brilliant person on the planet?
Right.
And what do you do with that inside of you when you're looking at this and saying, this is crazy as hell?
But also the spectrum. So and again, this is having the experts on. Mental illness is on the end of the spectrum.
Right.
When you talk about schizophrenia, suicide
Paranoia,
ideation, when you talk about paranoia, all those things, anxiety, that's on this end. So
there's a whole spectrum.
I've never even said, no, this is mental illness.
Right.
What I've said is this is mental health
issues,
because I just fundamentally.
All right, y'all. So we're back now for a quick talk break. We got to have a comment break in between. So, wow. The reason why I wanted to play this conversation and do, this 4-part series on this is because literally the conversation and everything that they're speaking about are things that we probably have not, or perhaps experienced in our own lives, but a lot of things that are being talked about that we probably have had conversations around as to why we see a lot of things happening that we see. We're talking about watching reports of people who are just at their wits' end and can literally take out all of their children, right? Like there has to be there's a reason and a root as to why that person, is that way. There's probably a lot of things that they have dealt with and experienced or went through in their life from the time the root started to grow and became bigger, right? Because that's usually what happens. Like these wild weeds and roots in our lives form, and we don't cut them. We don't rip them out. We don't dig them out. We just allow them to stay there. And over a period of time, they fester and they fester and they fester and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And until eventually they take over, right? That's what weeds do. And so a lot of us sometimes are battling with weeds that we haven't ripped up and we've let them grow way too wild. And once we get to those certain points and predicaments in our lives, there can be these type of, encounters or occurrences that may happen that are detrimental. And I do see that there is a pattern that a lot of this is happening very frequently, right? So there has to be a solution. And to get to the solution, what Iyanla said is basically we have to realize what is the root of the cause. What are your thoughts on this, Imani?
There was they started to talk really about, first and foremost, talking about, and I'll just say men in general and women in general, that men are not the enemy of women and women are not the enemy of men. I repeated that. There was also a lot of, there was a discussion, they started a discussion about emotional regulation, or I think Iyanla called it emotional literacy in men. And it's a focus on really how boys or men are raised emotionally, because they are taught not to cry, to suck it up, don't look weak, don't ask for help. And the result is many men grow up unable to identify or communicate their emotions beyond, they label it anger, frustration, or aggression, which is fine in sport. It's fine in sport to have aggression, but in your day-to-day life, that can become a problem if that aggression translates into your day-to-day life. And if you can't identify what you feel, you can't regulate it. And once again, they talked about this trauma that's passed through generations and the causes of the trauma. And one of the things they were talking about is this tragedy that's happened, where the guy has unalived several people, like family. And one of the things that was noted was his emotional trauma with his mother, who was on crack. And this is something I've actually come across when I used to work with people in the prisons. I dealt with many young men when I used to teach people to read, whose mothers were addicted and had addiction problems, and they hadn't healed from them, and they had protected their mother, because it for most children, the automatic thing to do, because they, until they get older, they don't realize that, the parents are supposed to protect them. They were protecting the parents. They were there. They didn't know, what was right, what was wrong. And they watched, these addicted parents doing all this stuff and carried that trauma into adulthood. And so these are what they call inherited. She calls them inherited wounds from the parents and the grandparents, from seeing this stuff when they're children. And, it's like they learnt survival behaviors during those times. But it becomes also, violence is normalized in those scenarios. And they have a loyalty to their parents, even though their parents are harmful to them. And also learning to suppress emotions. And that's men and women that live throughout those sort of traumatic situations. And also, you also have to look at the outside environmental factors like racism, poverty, instability, addiction, broken down families, no support systems. So there's a lot that can come into this. It's not just a simplistic thing. And also they started to talk or touch on mental health that's untreated and unhealed. That's what I got from that. And it's things that many of us have seen, maybe not so, many of us seen that in our personal lives, but others have seen it, around us, people who've experienced it. We've had friends, we've had family, extended family that go through these things. So, there's a lot that goes on, and there's a lot in this discussion.
I agree. And everything that you said, absolutely true. Ma, I think you had a few things that you wanted to add and say as well. You can go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you and probably JJ.
Yes, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. But
Mhm.
hello to the chat. Hello to Amani and you. This is a good live. It's a very informative live, and it's one that is necessary in the world that we're in today. Regardless, as you said, it seems to be more prevalent in our race, but we know that it exists in all races. And I'm going to give you a little personal scenario. I am a child who came from a domestic abuse parents. I was raised as an only child. They loved me dearly, but the two of them, I mean, it was a crazy scene. It was broken glass in the middle of the night. There was pushing and shoving furniture, all that. And I developed as a child, developed more of my mental and nervous condition really stemmed from that. And then, as you know, as I grew up and got older and decided to marry, unfortunately, I married into a marriage where the same thing existed. There was domestic and mental abuse within my marriage of 21 years. Um, and the last stroke that I had was a condition of that abuse. So what I was speaking on is more of a cycle thing too that we have to pay attention to. That when we come out of these households, not that it's always guaranteed, but sometimes we find ourselves in a cycle of following the atmosphere or the environment that we came out of. I happen to be one of those persons who did just that. But of course, you know, as I've gotten older, I got found God and got my life together and stuff. After all that of the storms and the hilltops and everything I've been through, but that's why I say we have to really pay attention, especially when we're raising children and rearing children, to try to make sure that we have that positive, healthy environment for them at home. Because unfortunately, when they witness these things, or they have to be there when these things are going on, even with the young men, they might begin to, learn or think that, okay, this is the way you treat a woman. This is the way my father treated my mother. Or you'll have the young lady who thinks that, well, if he beats me, he loves me. Because my mother and father went through the same thing. So I guess that's the way it's supposed to be. But anyway, I'm going to shorten this because I'm with my grandson. But that was the point that I wanted to point out, that we have to really make sure of the environment that we're raising our children in. And like you said, this is going to be a very long war. It's going to take a long time of healing, but something must be done. Men are getting hurt in domestic abuse. Women are getting hurt and unalived in domestic abuse. And it's a very serious subject. And I think it's something that we need to keep our mind on and stay brilliant in trying to get the healing done for both. So that's all I really wanted to say. Bless everyone. I just wanted to share that. And some would say, well, I wouldn't share that. I share it because it may help and bless someone else. So that's why I don't mind sharing. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm going to let you girls get back to this live. It's a good live. I'm really paying attention. And I'll get
Sure,
back in the chat. Mhm.
I appreciate that. I said,
Okay,
thank
dear.
you for watching, JJ. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm trying my best in here. Okay.
Uh,
All right. Come on
okay,
now. All right,
thank you,
baby.
Mama.
All right.
So Mama is very much open. She's done a lot of work and self healing and reflection, and so she has no problem with being very open and honest about some of the things that have happened in her life and sharing those experiences. Because sometimes when we do that, that can help somebody else heal or help somebody else feel like they're less alone and less unseen, because sometimes you feel like you're dealing with these things by yourself, or you might be the only person that's going through it, or you feel as though nobody understands. But there are people out here that understand, and they, can give you whatever, a shoulder to cry on, just maybe a piece of advice from more of a wisdom standpoint, because maybe they've been through it, they survived through it, and they can give you hope and awareness that you can get through it too. Or maybe they can just be there to be like, look, what you're going through and what you're experiencing, you're not by yourself. Like, a lot of people are going through these things or experience these things or may have. And so, when it comes to that, my mom is very much open to do that. And that is her way of giving back and being open and honest. What do you think about that, Imani? Do you feel as though we should be more like that, like just open to be honest about these things when we are, strong enough to do so? It can be helpful. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, everybody's different. I used to find uh a lot of the time, especially with young men or even older men, it's when they hit rock bottom that they tend to be more open about their experiences and what happened to them. I think we do need to create these spaces, and I think women have more spaces that they do this, but it's all sometimes it's very personal. Some people feel are good at just being open and sharing their experiences, and it helps people, and some people find it difficult. It just depends on where you're at on that spectrum. There are some people that are very closed and very private. You know, Mama D's great at that, at being open about her experiences, and I hope, you know, it could help just if it helps just one person, it's great. You know, I think the thing that I found that I used to have to tell people is to find someone to talk to, whether it's a family member, whether it's a stranger, that find someone that you can be open with. And I've found with a lot of the young men, they found it easier to tell a stranger than someone they knew about their experiences, whatever they were. And I think it is good, you know, for some people, but it's what you're comfortable doing, I think, because we can't expect everybody to bare their soul all the time.
Exactly. Absolutely. Right. People, and again, you have to remember too, like when we have these type of conversations, especially wrapped around everything that they're talking about, you have to be to a place where you're fully healed. You know what I mean? That you have made peace with whatever it is, and you're out of whatever it is you may have gone through, right? And you heal from that. And that can take people time. We don't know where people are at in any of these things. Some people may still be well within, you know, and so they're not gonna come out and talk and say this is what it is and this is, you know, what I put two and two together about. They may not be in that position yet to be able to reflect on those things and maybe put the pieces together as far as what some of, you know, whatever the conversation may be. Whatever they're comfortable with discussing at that time is what they are comfortable with discussing at that time. And we have to give everybody grace when it comes to that. But what we're going to do is take a quick song break. After this song break, we'll come back and get into the rest of the conversation. We will be right back, y'all. Give me just a few moments. And I do see that there's some questions in the chat, and I'll answer some of those right after we're done with the song break. We'll be right back, y'all.
Some wounds don't bleed outside. Some battles happen in silence. Some people master survival, but never learn healing. Let it breathe. Everybody got secrets hidden behind smiles. Family portraits covering trauma for miles. Mama stayed strong, but her spirit looked tired. Daddy full of rage, whole house felt wired. Children in the hallway hear the yelling at night. Growing up too fast, thinking chaos is life. And pain moved quiet through the bloodline deep. Somebody crying every night, they can't sleep. Talk about it. People say pray, but they don't teach healing. Say you keep pushing while your soul's still bleeding. Everybody wearing masks just to function. Whole generation scared of real discussion. How you love somebody when you broken inside? How you carry peace when your inner child died? How we normalize damage and call it tradition, then wonder why the family losing its vision. Facts. I know the storm feels endless. I know the nights get cold, but pain ain't your identity and broken ain't your soul. Even if your voice shake when you speak, the wounded still deserve peace. Some people punch walls, some people punch souls, some people lose control cause nobody made them whole. And hurt turned to anger, anger turned cold, and silence starts spreading like a sickness in the home. Men told man up, never taught emotion. Women carrying worlds while they drowning in oceans. Everybody posting strength for the internet, meanwhile real life falling into deep neglect. And social media turn pain into entertainment. Everybody got opinions but nobody contain them. Need therapy, prayer, accountability too, not fake love, perform for a digital view. Somebody listening right now feeling trapped, trying to hold together while they soul collapse. If nobody told you lately, hear me clear tonight, you deserve a home that feels safe at night. Healing ain't weakness, leaving pain ain't weakness, crying ain't weakness. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing a soul can do. Than the art, no weapon formed against peace gon' prosper. And even with stars running deep, grace still grows flowers, but concrete. The healing starts now. The healing starts now. Some wounds don't bleed outside. Some battles happen in silence. Some people master survival, but never learn healing. Let it breathe. Everybody got secrets hidden behind smiles. Family portraits covering trauma for miles. Mama stayed strong, but her spirit looked tired. Daddy full of rage, whole house felt wired. Children in the hallway hear the yelling at night. Growing up too fast, thinking chaos is life. And pain moved quiet through the bloodline deep. Somebody crying every night, they can't sleep. Talk about it. People say pray, but they don't teach healing. Tell you keep pushing while your soul's still bleeding. Everybody wearing masks just to function. Whole generation scared of real discussion. How you love somebody when you broken inside? How you carry peace when your inner child died? How we normalize damage and call it tradition, then wonder why the family losing its vision. Facts. I know the storm feels endless. I know the nights get cold, but pain ain't your identity, and broken ain't your soul. We don't gotta live like this no more, crying on the bathroom floor. God didn't make us just to survive. We were born to heal, born to rise. Rise. No more fear, no more shame, no more carrying generational pain. Even if your voice shake when you speak, the wounded still deserve peace. Some people punch walls, some people punch souls, some people lose control cause nobody made them whole. And hurt turned to anger, anger turned cold, and silence starts spreading like a sickness in the home. Men taught man up, never taught emotion. Women carrying worlds while they drowning in oceans. Everybody posting strength for the internet. Meanwhile, real life falling into deep neglect. And social media turn pain into entertainment. Everybody got opinions, but nobody contained. They need therapy, prayer, accountability too. Not fake love, perform for a digital view. Somebody listening right now feeling trapped, trying to hold together while they soul collapse. If nobody told you, let you hear me clear tonight. You deserve a home that feels safe at night. Healing ain't weakness. Leaving pain ain't weakness. Crying ain't weakness. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing a soul can do. Than the author, no weapon formed against peace gon' prosper. And even with stars running deep, grace still grows flowers, but concrete. The healing starts now. The healing starts now.
All right, y'all. So thanks for rocking with me with that quick song break, y'all. Let's go ahead and get back into it. So we're going to just go ahead and play some more of the commentary, and then we'll do our comment break in just a moment. So let's keep it going right here. I believe this is where we left off.
Not to be killed, for children not to have to experience it.
But the desire is for men not to do that.
Right. So if that's our desire and that's our goal, then we have to sit down and go, okay, why is this person so mad and so angry? What are these demons? What did you experience? What do you like? You literally have to deal with that. And I keep saying that if men commit 96% of all domestic violence, we have got to confront what is going on between the ears of these men.
Well, again, we live in a society that and the average day. Well, first, let me just say this. Let me just say this out loud, because we have been desensitized to the magnitude of mental imbalance, mental health issues, because we're looking at it every single day and calling it something else. The leader of the free world has a diminished mental capacity. And we are going along every single day acting like this is what we are seeing is normal. We do the same thing when we know Uncle Bubba drink too much, or when Uncle Freddie, Cousin Freddie is nodding off. We have been desensitized to even see or address. Sometimes we don't have the language. Sometimes we don't have the tools. Sometimes, do y'all see Uncle Bubba peeing in the flower pot? Are we gonna say anything? Do y'all not see that the leader of the free world has diminished mental capacity, and that people have joined in his story that he's the most brilliant person on the planet?
Right.
And what do you do with that inside of you when you're looking at this and saying, this is crazy as hell?
But also the spectrum. So and again, this is having the experts on. Mental illness is on the end of the spectrum.
Right.
When you talk about schizophrenia, suicide ideation, when you talk about paranoia, all those things, anxiety, that's on this end. So
there's a whole spectrum.
I've never even said, no, this is mental illness.
Right.
What I've said is, this is mental health issues. Because I just fundamentally, you are an unhealthy person if your reaction to something that your wife or girlfriend did is to puncture. That's here. That's whatever you've been learned, taught, whatever, that's here. And if I'm trying to stop that from escalating, I'm going to have to get inside of this to say, bruh, I need to why did...
But he may not know, Roland. This is
right. But he may not know. But the only way we're going to get to that, it has to be drawn out of him in therapy or whatever. Otherwise, if he's just walking around like, I don't know, he's going to be a loose cannon.
Well, that's why we are each. I mean, I was so grateful, really, that you were asking these questions, because part of it is we each, Roland, you, me, everybody listening, watching, has to begin to take responsibility for their own internal well-being. We seem to abdicate that responsibility, and we think that happy flowers, that's what I call marijuana, happy flowers or liquor or drinking or shopping or watching, binging TV, people dating computers. Spiritual hygiene. We have to take responsibility for our own inner well-being. We are looking at people leading this country and telling us stuff that we can't trust, that we don't know where it's taking us. We don't know when they're going to turn on us. You know the number of people right here in the DMV that lost jobs? Mm-hmm. Good government jobs. Where are they now? And now what money they have, they're spending on gas. You got to learn how to emotionally regulate.
Right.
Period. Everybody, you, me, whatever.
And that is learned.
Learned.
That
has to be taught.
You ain't just born with it.
Right.
You're just not born with. Look, I use this example, and again, I tell people this when I first got married. My wife washed something of mine and it shrunk. I was like, why? I said, this is not worth an argument. I said, if you have the desire, because I had stacks of clothes all over, if you have the desire to wash something, all I ask you to do is pick up one item in this pile and look at that label.
Look at the tag.
I said, that's all. I said, now, I don't need you to wash. I will wash. The whole point there was,
you had to regulate.
It could have been an argument. That one thing, because the clothes shrunk.
Yeah.
She's like, you got these special clothes. You got hot and warm and cold, because that's how mom and dad taught us how to wash clothes. But that was a situation where I said, well, this is not worth an argument. Here's the solution to the problem, so it don't happen again. But that's regulating one's emotion. Yeah.
But if you don't even know what you feel, we have to be taught, and we have to make it a priority. We have to make our inner well-being, our spiritual hygiene, our mental balance, our emotional regulation. We have to make it a priority, because this system, this society will lock you up rather than lift you up.
But also recognize that in that moment, when it's about to come out, who's around? If children are around, they are now hearing and seeing. They're now modeling. And so the whole point about emotional regulation now means how I handle the situation is going to be providing a real life lesson as they are watching. And then the other thing is this here. How, if I just go off, how is she receiving me going off? So I got to now factor in. So here I'm highly emotional, angry. She's now apprehensive, anxious, frightened. The kids are now, so now all of a sudden, one situation now has just blown up. And if you're the individual who can control yourself, you now change and dictate how none of these things now, like I call it just the cascading effect, happens, because in the moment you caught yourself, you stop yourself, say, is it that important? But these are the things when I look at these stories, and I say, and this person here who, because again, the end spectrum is someone who kills their spouse, kills their girlfriend, kills their mother. Right. The case in Cook County, and this young man apparently still was reeling from the death of his father 2 years earlier as who was a Cook County commissioner, and dealing with that. And so we have to confront these things, because if we need to stop also lying to ourselves. We're seeing it. We're seeing that uncle, to your point, at the family gathering who goes off. Everybody like, oh, don't say nothing.
Right, that's
or
it.
we'll say
That's
is,
right.
you know, look, we ain't trying to get in their business. No. Because their business might come back to our doorstep.
Yeah. But see, that's communal thinking. And we've indoctrinated ourselves to this broader society, which is I, me. And that's communal thinking. You know, my personal motto is secure the children first. I don't care what you rusty butt adults are doing. Secure the children first. That's why I'm 73 raising an 8-year-old. Okay, my great-grandson, because it was secure the children first. And the others couldn't do it. I wasn't going to sit by and let him become another part of the system.
Secure the children first also through a spiritual lens means I can stop a generational curse.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if that's not addressed, now all of a sudden that child now may emulate 20, 30 years down the road.
Absolutely. But do you know how many people have inherited the wound, inherited the break, inherited the curse, and we're taught and trained to accommodate it, to tolerate it, to call it something else? I think one of the things that, and I'm going to talk about Black women in just a moment, but I think one of the diseases that's spreading among Black men that we really have to address is hopelessness. Because I've talked to a lot of brothers, and they say it's like, no matter how hard I try, I'm not getting ahead. No matter what I do, it's never enough, it's never right. And they're talking about both in the world and at home. At home. I'm not appreciated, you know, and everybody's not college bound. And there's no, you know, there used to be dignity in being a garbage man, a sanitation worker. Don't look and nobody will know it's yours. Being a sanitation worker or being a mailman.
Okay, can somebody tell me what this music is playing?
That is my phone.
That's your phone? I'm like, what is...
It's in my purse. This is live TV, y'all.
Like...
I'm sorry. Get it out my purse and tell you. I thought I had turned it off. And see how we were getting ready to act like it wasn't going on?
Like I was trying, like, is that going to end? Is something happening? Well, all right, go ahead.
That's Uncle Bubba peeing in the plant. We acting like it's not going on.
I'm like, is that thing going to shut down?
But hopelessness. So many brothers are hopeless. And when that happens, they don't have anything to lose. So they'll just go there, go off the deep end. And the way.
All right, so we're going to just take a quick commentary break. And I just want to ask you guys, and you as well, Imani, what do we think about that statement there? That, for me, that was a very powerful last statement that she made as far as when it comes to hopelessness. Do we believe that there is a high level of hopelessness within not just necessarily Black men in general, but, you know, predominantly Black men, because Black men are, you know, typically and historically, and if we look at the facts and the evidence and the proof, you know, within a space where they may have, you know, the shorter end of the stick. So do we feel like a lot of the frustration from Black men comes from the fact that there's hopelessness there and they're frustrated? Because, you know, basically what she was saying when she has conversations with some of these men is that, you know, no matter what they do, it's never good enough. Do you believe that? Or what are your thoughts or feelings or opinions when it comes to that statement, Imani?
I think I talked about this the other day. I think it's what we celebrate that makes this society begin to look down on things that were, you know, ordinary, what we call ordinary jobs. Because these days we celebrate the programs where there's fighting. We celebrate people are big social media stars. Everything is to do with celebrity. No one wants to be doing an ordinary job anymore. We don't celebrate academia. And I think this is a little bit of what they touched on and what I was talking about the other day. You know, not everybody can be a dancer, singer, or an actor, or a social media star, or go on baddies and beat people up. Someone has to deliver the mail.
Right.
Someone has to clean up the trash. Someone
Mhm.
has to paint the houses. Someone has to build them. We don't celebrate just people doing a 9 to 5 job. It's all about this whole, you know, everybody wants to be a star these days.
Right.
And this is what I think leads to the hopelessness of people think they're not achieving unless they're doing all these things that we have raised to the focus.
Right.
And that is why I think you get a lot of hopelessness. It's because of what we're celebrating as the good things. We're celebrating, you know, we're celebrating a lot of,
Rappers,
yeah.
actors, yeah, all of those things. Like, and then we have, if I can just chime in just for a moment,
Mm,
you know, we have a society that we live in that like you said, celebrates that, pushes that, and even those individuals that have accomplished that, you know, they try to, you know, move or make it seem like they are better than anyone who is not doing that. And with that said society, there are a lot of people who look at that and they make a comparison between what these people are doing and what they have and what they, you know, have obtained or achieved or accomplished, and they feel as though if it doesn't mirror that or if it's not the same, then what they're doing is less than, and it makes them less than a person, or you know what I mean. So
yeah.
I
But
agree.
but
I,
there was also something really important here that they talked about, and it was talking about if society only punishes violence without understanding what creates these violent people, the cycle will just continue. And Roland talked repeatedly about prevention of M's, prevention of assaults, prevention of abuse, prevention of this emotional, you know, this emotional destruction before the escalation happens. And it requires confronting mental health issues, trauma. It requires people learning to regulate their emotions and hope, and the hopelessness. And there's a thing that they said, and I remember this from childhood. When you used to have family functions, you always knew the family member that would kick off at one point during the wedding, the funeral, the baptism, the christening. And what we used to do, our prevention was, you know, sometimes the aunties would say, don't let him have too much to drink. Just make
right.
sure you keep him away from the drink. And they'd always find someone to give them a lot to drink. And then they'd always be the same people kicking off, and they'd always get invited again and
Mhm.
again and disrupt the proceedings. And the thing
Right.
is, there was no prevention there. We just accepted that that person, when they came, were going to be the one that was going to
No.
cause the problems.
Yep. Yep. And look how our society is now, and the way we move and operate now. You know, it hasn't changed at all. It's the very same. Like, you know that there's going to be a guarantee that this person, we don't know what it is or why it is they do things they do, but at any point when that person is around, they're going to cut up, they're going to act a fool, you know, and you just sock it up to being, oh, that's just how she is, or that's just how he is. That's just what they do. Like that's just who they are. And you're overlooking the fact that, you know, this person may be very disturbed because these things that they're doing are not normal, right? Like, they're not functionable. They're not making things safe or comfortable for the group or the society. So why do we allow to just keep sweeping that under the rug? If I go into one, I don't even want to go into one deeper, but I could go into one deeper.
But
Um,
no one ever asked them why.
right, right. Or, you know, like at the family function, you know, Uncle Tim come over, and everybody knows, like, the young girls know, don't go around Uncle Tim, right? Like, don't sit on his lap. Don't be alone in a room with him because you know how Uncle Tim is. You'll say that, right? But he's still coming. He's still invited to come. And so this is the things that I'm talking about, and I think really ties into a lot of this conversation is how we even allow these things to fester and go further than necessary. Because I don't believe that that needs to continue to happen. I know it used to be an old school thing back in the day. We know that, and some communities and stuff. But as far as us moving forward now and trying to bring change for the future to make sure the same history doesn't keep repeating itself and the same bad behavior just gets, chalked up to, oh, that's just how he is or how she is. No, I think we have to nip those things in the bud because that's completely unacceptable. And if that person cannot behave or they can't handle themselves appropriately around a group or a particular, class of person, or what I'm saying, like children, whatever, women, whatever, then I feel like you don't deserve to come around. You don't need to be here. And if you're not going to try to help that person seek help for these ailments and these issues that are problematic, then what are you doing at this point? All it seems like you're doing is pacifying it and enabling. And I think that's a big problem. Do you agree, Amani?
Yeah, the biggest thing is we never ask them why. We've
Mhm.
never asked that person. A lot of the time, we've never asked them why they do it. We've never asked them if they have an issue. We just accept it as that person's behavior. When maybe the simplest thing would be to sit that person down and ask, why do you do this at all the family functions? Why? What is wrong? And a lot of the time, you find out years down the line that they did have an issue. And like I said, it's not making an excuse for the behaviors, but we don't actually do enough to try and find out what is causing the behaviors and try and prevent them. And I think there was an issue where they talked about prevention. Prevention is better than cure.
And I think too, it's also based on like your level of expertise and what you can actually do, right? Because you can ask that question all day long. They can tell you the truth or they can lie. Even if they tell you the truth, are you equipped to do anything to change that or make it different, right? So that's up to, clinical professionals or whatever, spiritual gurus, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's not even sometimes when we ask those questions, are we even going to get a real answer? That's what I feel, right? What I feel is, and I know that I've heard from people that in other countries and other cultures, there is no shame in shunning and what's that other word that I'm looking for? Exiling, right? I feel like there's not a lot of movement when it comes to certain cultures, especially when it comes here in the United States, with Americans, of shunning and exiling. It's like you just allow people to be the way they are, knowing that they're nasty work, and you continue to bring them around, and you continue to just pretend that their behavior and how they show up as a person is extremely unacceptable. You don't call them out for it, and you still allow them to come around. I think that's a big problem as well. You don't shun, you don't exile. And a lot of other countries, a lot of people doing these type of things that they do, they don't get away with that in other countries. They don't, because they get shunned and they get exiled, and sometimes even worse. Now, I'm not saying we need to go to those limbs. I'm not saying that. I'm not exciting, any type of violence or anything like that. But I'm just saying they handle it differently. They don't tolerate it. Like, you're done. You're out. We live in a society and a community, and not maybe even just necessarily in the United States, but maybe it's just within the Black community where we make a lot of excuses, right? Oh, well, he was in, the Vietnam War, so he's not right in the head. And it's okay for him to come to the family functions and, be inappropriate towards young girls. We're not going to use the excuse that he was in the Vietnam War and his mind ain't right. That's unfortunate that that's what happened to him. And that could be a possibility as to why he moves and operates this way. But his actions is what we need to focus on. And so if you can't come to the Thanksgiving dinner, the Christmas dinner, or a cookout without making people feel uncomfortable, then I just think you shouldn't come. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I do think you're right. We don't
You
shun
make
people. Like
excuses
like I
for yourself.
said, we make allowances for their behavior, and we don't actually try and, you know, correct it or help to correct it or challenge it. But
Right.
hey,
We'll
anyway,
keep going in just a
yeah.
moment. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, like, okay, let's just say that's Uncle Tim. That's what Uncle Tim does. Everybody knows Uncle Tim and the family does this. And then the excuse is he was in the Vietnam War. He had a head injury. He's not right in the head. And that's why he does these things. Okay. We can accept all of that. Right. And then Auntie Gina can be like, well, Uncle Tim, why do you do these things? Does he even really know? He may not even be the one who has said, I've had a brain injury from being in the Vietnam War and now I'm all messed up mentally and this is why I do this. He may not even know why he does those things. So just asking the question or approaching that situation in a way like that I don't, maybe that can help a certain type of individual that's willing to have that conversation and be open and honest about it. But like they were saying, I believe early on in the conversation, half of these people don't even know why they do the things they do. So if we ask them, they're not going to be able to give us an answer, a truthful answer as to why they do it. That takes more skill and practice from, I believe, professionals, that spend a lot of time around these type of dynamics and characters and stuff like that, that maybe can help them get to the bottom of why they do the things they do and act and operate the way they do. But just a random family member asking that question, I don't think you're going to get an answer. I don't think half the time they know. All we
Sometimes they do. Sometimes
sometimes
they need to. Sometimes they do know what the problem is. No, sometimes no one's ever actually spoken to them about the issue or asked them what the problem is, and that's the other thing about how we communicate amongst ourselves, even people that are in those situations, that are, faced with those situations. We have to try talking first and communicating with the person, because sometimes we just don't bother asking. We just accept it as that person's behavior. That
so
I
let's
don't think it's always the case they don't know. Sometimes it's the case no one's ever asked them and no one's ever bothered to talk to them about it.
let's speak on some topics that's a little bit less shameful, right? Because the one that I brought up, I know it's very shameful, and I really have a high expectancy that if you ask somebody who does things like that, the true reason as to why they do it, they're not going to give you a true answer. But let's go to something that's more easy to ask, right? So let's
No, I
go.
don't. I have to disagree with you. I know, I know that you're going on to another subject. If someone has been abused as a child and never spoken to anybody, and they go around being inappropriate with people, but they've never actually spoken about it, they've never been asked about what the problem is, and that a lot we're underestimating the value of what people know about themselves. Some people do know that. That's why you get a lot of people who end up at the lowest of low. They may end up in a prison doing therapy, and then they tell people what happened to them and the shame that they held for years and years and years.
That's
Not
true.
everybody is not capable of understanding their behaviors. Some people just haven't been challenged or asked or even been allowed to express it. That's why
That's
I
true.
disagree. There are
That's
some people that may not know, but there are a lot of people that do know what happened to them. And I'm not saying it's all about hurt people, but some people have never expressed this. There are people who express this stuff, in their 70s and 80s. Look at all this stuff that's coming out about people now.
Let me tell you how you're right about that for real, because I watch a lot of interviews, and I like to watch this channel. It's on here on YouTube. It's Soft White Underbelly, and I watch that channel a lot. And I watch the interviews and the conversations that those people have. And again, it takes a person getting to a point where maybe they're able to open up and talk about these things. And so typically with these interviews, these people are at that point. And I watch how they have these conversations, and I watch the questions that are asked from the interviewer, and I watch the answers that some of these people have. And these are people along all types of lines. I mean, like predators, all of this stuff, right? And they will ask them these questions, and they have finally gotten to a point where I guess maybe they realized, or they reflected, or maybe they done some self work or therapy. We can't be sure how they got to that point where they are before they got to that interview. But when I watch them have those conversations in the interview, they literally will come out and say like, well, they show remorse, right? And a lot of times, like I remember, okay, I've watched a few interviews over on Soft White Underbelly with like predators, right? Because I watched that because that's sickening to me. I hate that. And there's females and there's males. Let's be very clear about that. And I watch the interviews, and they'll come out, and they've gotten to a point where they can just come out and like literally just tell you like, well, I believe that this all stemmed from and started from, because when I was 5, this, that, and the third happened to me. And I just thought it was okay. I mean? I thought it was normal, and that's, what you do. So like things like that. That's just an example. But they'll have like some really whatever answer or what they feel or what their, enlightenment is at that time. They'll be honest about it. They will be honest, and it will be brutal. And you'll sit there and you listen to it and you'll be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe they just said that. But they're being brutally honest. Like my reasoning, or what I've come to a conclusion of, is that I have been doing these things and acting out, these type of behaviors because this, that, and the third happened to me at this age or that age or whatever like that. So I do also watch all of the interviews. It's not just those type. I watch ones with, like pimps. I watch the ones with prostitutes, predators and stuff like that. Even DV cases. There's some really good interviews of DV cases on there as well. And once they get to that point to be able to admit it and just say it out loud, this is typically at a point in their life where they are now trying to turn over a new leaf and not do these things anymore and get healing and gain, progression and whatnot in their life from being that way and doing the things that they do. So yeah, I agree with you, Imani. I do think that, maybe there are some people that just haven't been approached or asked, right? But then I think it's a lot of people that haven't been caught either.
Yeah, it goes back to what they were saying earlier on in the video about unhealed trauma not going away. It resurfaces through other behaviors such as violence, addiction, emotional shutdown, controlling behavior, self-destructive behavior. These are all the things that a lot of stuff that we exhibit is unhealed trauma. And I think that, and it's the root cause that we have to go back to. What was the cause? And that's the whole thing. It's even the uncle that gets drunk and, or the auntie that gets drunk at the party and starts being, overtly sexual with everybody, or the uncle that gets drunk at the party and at the gathering and, starts fighting with everybody. It's unhealed trauma. Somewhere along the line, that behavior has come from somewhere. It's
Right.
not just they are just a drunk, or they are just a hoe, or they are just this. It's unhealed trauma. And I think that's what goes back to the prevention thing. But anyway,
Right.
let's keep it moving. Let's
Yeah,
go on with the video.
after we listen to a little bit more, I want to tell you all about a book that I heard about as well, that actually ties into all this. But we'll do this after we listen to a little more of the audio. So let's get back into it.
Okay.
That we got to support them in addressing, acknowledging, feeling the hopelessness, is to begin to give them tools and opportunities and a safe place for them to be vulnerable, to be wounded. Where is a safe place for the average Black man to be wounded, broken, vulnerable? Where is that? Women, because we hunt and gather, we come together and we gonna get you straight. He left you, let's all beat him. You
Right.
know?
Right.
Or let's go shopping. Or we have a different culture, a different community among us. But what has also happened for us is Black women have been taught to love deeply, to love loyally, and to love sacrificially. We will sacrifice ourselves for the love of our partner, our family, our children. And in doing so, very often, we sacrifice what we know, what we feel, what we sense, and we won't speak to the phone ringing in the middle of the live TV show.
When you talked about how women gather, and this was one of the first things we talked about. We had 2 male psychologists on, and we challenged men. We said that what can't happen, what you can't have is a group of guys who get together, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they don't talk.
Yeah. Well, they
don't
talk about
share.
ball.
It's always playing. And I've told this story many times. That was it was a church men's retreat, and I had a work retreat that Friday, and the men's retreat was Friday, Saturday. It ended Sunday morning, and so I go on Saturday, and when I arrived around 4 o'clock, where's everybody at? Oh, games, fishing, doing whatever. Okay, all right, okay. So then it was time to eat. Then there was a service that was around 7 o'clock. Okay. About an hour into this service, I see them bringing out trays of food and stuff behind me. I go, yo, what the? Oh, yeah, so we probably gonna be done with this about 30 minutes. And so then we got Domino's cards and television. I said, I'm sorry. Y'all had a whole day of games and outdoor activities, and they came back, and we're gonna spend 90 minutes on stuff, and then it's back to games. I said, nah, this ain't gonna work. And so I stood up and I said, I don't know. I said to the organizers, I don't mean no disrespect, but I know cats right now who marriages are about to be over. I know some of the stuff. I said, and y'all literally are not going to deal with this. I said, you've had women who have paid for you to come here. You've had mothers and wives and aunts I said, and you gonna come here to play games and go back the same way. I said, and I never even took it in my room. I went back home. Mm-hmm. I was so ticked. So what I was trying to say then, and what I even say now is, what men cannot do. When I hear women say we need men to hold each other accountable, that means that men are going to have to also learn
they have to
how to get your friend to open up so you can understand what they're dealing with. So it's not y'all getting together, drinking, watching the game, playing ball, because he needs somebody to talk to, and it's not always, yo, I'm good.
So that's why I created this.
All right, what's that?
Spiritual hygiene for Black men, the healing worksheet, the wound versus the behavior. I was up Sunday night praying all night long. So
now we have the link. Go ahead and pull it up, y'all. Pull it up. Go ahead.
Here's a question. What is the wound I carry? Let's just start there. What is the wound I carry? There may be 10 of them. There may be one. And you don't move until you can name that thing. Because you won't know what you're dealing with. You won't know what you're looking at. You won't even know what kind of help you need until you can identify the wound that you carry. Everybody carries one. I got one, you got one. How we manage it, how we've addressed it, how we've dealt with it, or how we've accommodated it, tolerated it, denied it, ignored it, and then shots with smoke eating grits. What is the wound you carry? Every Black man, write that down or come get the sheet. And then you got to identify, where did it come from? Some of it is inherited. Can you hear me? I inherited some stuff from my birth mother, whom I never met. She died when I was 2. But there's some stuff that I inherited from her, and one of them was remaining loyal to people who treat me badly. My mother was a car cleaner on the Pennsylvania Railroad in the 1920s. Do you know how people treated her? A black woman cleaning the train that black people couldn't even ride. Do you know how people treated her? She died when I was 2. But one of my wounds was remaining loyal to people who treat me badly, which is why I stayed 9 years in a marriage with a man who beat me.
And that's why for men, you have to understand what patriarchy is, what misogyny is, this belief that you control, what that is, again, what that could be from your grandfather, from your father, from your uncle.
Question number 3. What was I taught about being a man and control? What was I taught about being a man and expressing emotion? And I did this so that brothers have a direction. Because, you know, we're saying you got to heal. They don't even know where to sit down and do.
That's a phrase.
That's right.
That's a phrase.
You like to do this, get on your computer, take a breath, light some incense, smoke your happy flowers. That's what you do. Get your whatever. But at least give yourself permission to ask yourself the question. Who's ever asked, like, what were you taught about being a man and expressing emotion?
Right. And what does that actually mean?
Yes.
What to you, what does being a man mean? What does it mean? And that's and that is the thing, because again, if we don't equip people, and I'm just, I'm like, guys, you have to equip people with stuff
Tools,
to know how to walk
skills,
out.
language that we're not equipped. So
when you don't know, you don't know.
Right. But we have to stop acting like it doesn't matter. Here's another thing that I really want us to work on as good spiritual hygiene. I've noticed this thing that happened, I don't know, maybe in the last 5-10 years. Everything is generalized to black men and black women. Black women are this. Black men are that. Black men don't do this. Black women. And what happens is that generalization becomes your identity. So you're a black woman and somebody is saying something about black women. And if it doesn't apply to you, you dismiss the whole thing as when the messenger becomes the enemy, you will miss the message. Can you hear me?
Somebody will say something, I'm like, I don't know.
All right, y'all. Oh my goodness. We got just a few more minutes left of this first part, which is part 1. But that last statement right there, when the messenger is your enemy, you will miss the message. But they've also said so many other great things within that little segment as well. But that one just really floored me because it's something that I say all of the time. Like, just because you don't like somebody, it doesn't mean that what they're saying doesn't hold any weight and it's not true, right? And they could be bringing said great message to you or for you that you can benefit from, because we know God works in mysterious ways. And again, God, that's for me, my personal spiritual and religious beliefs. So I say God. But God works in mysterious ways. He can send your enemy with a message, right, for you that you need to hear. But a lot of times we will, we'll discard that message because it's like it's coming from a person that we don't typically care for or we don't like. But are we focusing more so on the person or are we focusing on the message? But let's finish up these last 5 minutes of the talking points between Iyanla and Roland. And then me and Imani will speak a little bit more about this topic. And then we'll wrap this video up because we'll do part 2 on another day. And then part 3 on another day and part 4 on another day. So we'll be splitting it up in 4 parts, like I said. But let's keep going and get these last 5 minutes out. And then we'll talk after that.
So we're taking on this. I really want to encourage us not to do that, because then we make the messenger the enemy, black men or black women, and we miss the message. And sometimes the message is, I listened to these things and I said, well, that's not an issue for me, but I'm glad to be aware of it. So when I see it as a woman, I can pull another woman up.
Right.
Or if I see it as a man, I can pull another man up, you know, or pull a brother up, offer him something, not in his face correcting him, but offer him something. I think it's so funny because women frequently say that I'm much harder on women than I am on men. And that's really not true. It's just that I know how to work a man. See, I can be in another woman's face because I am a woman. We can stand nipple to nipple, navel to navel. I can't do that with no man. But women think that it's okay for them to jump up in a man's face and point his finger. Listen, if Kevin Hart, love Kevin, if Kevin Hart were to roll up on Shaq and start antagonizing him, poking him in the penis or whatever, I don't know what Kevin might do. Mr. Lee and Miss Nancy, take Mr. Lee his dinner. Ask Miss Nancy if she would do what as a sign of respect. As a sign of respect. When the family came together on Saturday, the men folk went downstairs, the women folk upstairs. They were drinking their brown liquor out teacups. And that's how I learned a lot of stuff. I learned what to say, how to say. And today women think that our way of being in our women business is being submissive or less than men. No, you just got to know how to work it. So I can get men to tell me anything because I don't threaten them. I don't judge them. I don't, you know. I had a man pull up at me. I go to the river every morning to pray. This guy pulled up and saw, oh, Miss Nancy, went away, came back, pulled up beside me. I talked to that brother for 2 hours at the river. You know why? In that moment, I had to be a safe place for him to fall because he was hopeless. And he said, do you have any books in the back of your car? I don't ride around with no books, boy. What's wrong with you? 2 hours. He told me his whole life story. And I just had to be present.
I want to go back to what you just said, a sister who jumps up and gets in a man's face. I still go back to what we talked about before, emotional regulation.
Yes.
And
on both sides.
And that's what I want to segue into, because when we're talking about these dynamics and we're talking about men and women, and we're talking about anger, and we're talking about something that ticks us off.
But sometimes, Roland, it's fear. Sometimes it's shame. Sometimes it's guilt. Sometimes it's embarrassment. But when we don't regulate, all of those things will spill forth in the same way.
Right. And the thing, what jumps out at me, I just keep going back to, my goal is to avoid the murder-suicide. The goal is to avoid the murder. The goal is to avoid the beating. The goal is to avoid the verbal abuse. And if the goal is to actually be happy, healthy, whole, and even if you don't work out, even if you don't get divorced, it doesn't turn into War of the Roses. It doesn't turn into I want to destroy you. All of that still goes back to, how do I handle loss, disappointment, hurt, pain, and lashing out at that person simply is not the answer.
But if you've got
all right, y'all, I am so sorry to cut it off right there. Like I said, we're going to break it up into like 45-minute intervals, right? Because it's 2 hours and 51 minutes long. So we're going to break it up into 45-minute intervals and do different parts. So that's it. That's where we got to stop it for part one, y'all. I think that one was really, really deep. And now me and Imani are going to go ahead and have a conversation around what we listened to, you know, and what we've taken from what we've seen so far within, you know, this interview. So go ahead, Imani. I'll let you go first.
Oh.
If you want to. But yeah, we'll be getting into the second part. So basically on the second part, that's going to be our part two. That's the discussion around a broken mirror, right? Why the community struggles to protect. So they'll segue into that. They'll have a little bit of ending to the first additional conversation. We'll see that on the second part. But then the second part is going to segue into the broken mirror. But for the first part, what are your thoughts and feelings on that, Imani?
Yeah, I think it was a great conversation about mainly about DV and it's about violence in general because DV is violence. Um, and they talked a lot about um, trauma. Um, a lot of trauma is generational and inherited, and they also talked a lot about the fact that how men are reared. They're taught to, and I say all men in this, to suppress their emotions. Um, and what we do is we punish the actions, but we don't look at the root causes. Um, and the separation in communities has caused a lot of isolation. And also, they talked a lot about children witnessing this trauma, which comes out later on in life with different things like addiction, violence, etc. Um, the key thing is one of the key things took from that healing yourself is not a weakness, it's a strength. And you can't heal if you refuse to talk about what it is that's harmed you. And this, these uncontrolled emotions affect more than just the person with the uncontrolled emotions. It affects households. And you don't only have to be subject to it to try and help people. You can see these things, even if it's not your experience, and try to help people. Um, and the other thing that I was saying, there isn't no excuse. It isn't the same as making excuses for violence. It's about seeing the root causes. And, we've got to normalize things like therapy, create safe spaces for men, teach emotional regulation,
Mm-hmm.
address childhood trauma early, and steer people to counseling and support and break the cycles before they repeat in adulthood, and also take accountability for our actions. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a very very good first part. um you know it's not only, you can't just frame it as criminal behavior. We've got to connect it to the experiences, the historical experiences some people have, and the unhealthy coping mechanisms that people have, and some generational pain.
Right.
So we can break these cycles, but we've got to really look at the root causes.
Right. Because at the end of the day, I mean, what it boils down to is we all are human, right? So even
Hmm.
if we're humans that may not experience such terrible things and we go on to life to, be kind and nice to others and, you know what I'm saying, one another, or maybe we're humans that have dealt with some really terrible things and that has, led you to become an adult or a person who is a misconstrued, misunderstanding exactly what's right from wrong, and doing things that are from rage or that you think is normal because they're things that you always seen or you always experienced. You still are a human having a human experience, and it's like, yeah, is it right for us to just feel as though we got to throw these people away? No, not necessarily, right? If these people can get the proper help, like you said, if someone actually genuinely cares and asks the questions like, why do you do the things you do? Why do you act like that? Like, why do you treat people like that? Why do you talk to people like that? And they have the courage enough to open up and explain why they do that, then, maybe we can get some leeway somewhere, to get to the root of the cause. And once you get to the root and you treat and you deal with them roots, then maybe you can change the overall behavior and presence of that person. Like maybe they can change, maybe they can turn it all around, maybe they can be different, maybe they can be healthier and not go on to do the things they do as far as like hurting and harming people, because they are hurting and have been harmed themselves, but nobody ever cared about their hurt and harm. And so it just trickles down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And one of the things that I really wanted to, I really think it's important to talk about on this live. It's a pet peeve of mine about what happens on this and other platforms. Before I read out the stats, I'm going to talk about the fact that we have people, some people on this platform that think domestic violence is something they can use to mock people for content. And the key
Right.
thing is, they need to understand that real victims are involved. Survivors may be watching their content. Children affected by this, by DV, may see clips, memes, or mocking commentary. Families grieving people that have been unalived can be re-traumatized, and it minimizes serious harm. It turns abuse into jokes, clapbacks, live stream beefs, or monetized drama, and normalizes violent behavior. And it
Right.
really is disgusting because it
Yeah.
shifts the focus away from prevention, from people seeking healing, from
Yeah.
accountability, from safety, and it's just not funny.
It's not.
It's really not funny.
Yeah, I've been seeing and noticing, and we've talked about it, and that's a lot of things that really get up under our skin. And I can take into account that I've been a little bit of nasty work as far as how I talk and certain things that I say and the language that I use. But certain things that I will not do, I would never weaponize somebody's DV. I would never weaponize somebody's SA. I would never, like, I'm not gonna go to certain lengths. But I see that certain things are really being taken to certain lengths that I just feel like, what do you get out of that? You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? Like, at some point, we have to realize that you are almost as equally as bad as the problem that you feel as though you're fighting against. If you know what I'm saying, you want to take somebody, despite the fact you may not get along or whatever is happening in life in general on YouTube, period, take something that's that dynamic and use that to weaponize against that person to exploit across the entire platform. I don't know. But if we sit and we're having the conversations about the severity of it, then why would it be used as like just a, you know what I'm saying, a stone to throw because you're upset with that person? That's something that's too deep rooted and too sensitive to use as a weapon against somebody. And the more that keeps happening, I mean, I don't think we're not going to be getting anywhere, like that. That's things that even I've seen people have been pulling out and expressing on this internet that someone is not ready to express. They're not ready to talk about. They're not ready for even their own family members, let alone a whole public social media platform, to know that these are the things that's been going down or they've experienced or they survived through or had to fight through. That's not right, and that's not fair to do that to people. I don't think so.
And exactly right, Star. Star says it can make people feel like there's nowhere to turn. Exactly.
Right.
It can silence survivors of this type of trauma. Using these type of incidents for clickbait. It's ridiculous. Some people are in emotional crisis. They don't even realize people could be watching that crap.
And let me tell you, just because he said that, what I typically started to do when I first was starting on YouTube, and I'm saying, okay, people come in to support you, talk to you, chit chat with you, and stuff like that. I wanted to invite those people in and have a safe space for them to come. And I wanted to have conversations with them. And I wanted to understand, why do you do the things you do? Why do you act like that? Like, why are you being like that? I know you better than that. I have those type of conversations with people. I had that type of energy when I first started out. And I will go back to having that level of energy. But sometimes you got to navigate a little bit differently. The only reason why I switched up is because, and that's the same thing. It's just like if you see, an animal or something, a poor little puppy or something on the side of the street, or a cat, and you want to rescue it because you don't want to see it out there falling apart, you know what I'm saying, or being left out in the wilderness, hungry, no warmth or nothing in like that. And then you bring that little animal in and you want to care for it and you want to, see if it can be okay. And then it bites you or it scratches you, right? Or it's got rabies. And you know what I'm saying? Something like that. So the way I see it in my head is just like, it's not that people don't always want to be that or have that level of energy. There's just sometimes some people out here that are like so severely broken that there's nothing a content creator can do. There's nothing that, like it goes way beyond that. You know what I'm saying? Like these people may be needing more additional help. And it's cool if they just want to come around and hang around, just have a good time, whatever, like that. That's nice. That's great. And yes, we speak on healing here and we try to speak on positivity over here. That's what we've always tried to do. But when people come in that are so far broken and so far disturbed, then now those type of things, or whatever spirits they may have on them and attacks that they feel like they just gonna pop out and do, you have to be a certain type of person to be able to handle all of that. And what I think is that content creators, no matter how positive or spiritual or whatever it is that they want to hold their platform to be, they may not be the proper ones equipped to help individuals that may be in that certain type of circumstance that are dealing with something so deep and so, traumatic, and that has just caused them to be, just nasty work. And once someone comes in your life like that and they start, you're trying to be kind, you're trying to be nice, you're trying to help, but they keep attacking you. And the reason why they act the way they is because they're broken or they're going through something, or you know what I'm saying? That, and you give understanding when it comes to that. But does that mean that you're supposed to allow that person to abuse you and hurt and harm you? What do you think about that, Imani?
Well, I think that there's a lot of people on this platform that do content and they don't have any training in safeguarding. They will speak about anything out the side of their mouth as though they know stuff. They've done no research. They don't have experts on their panels. They don't have any in-depth knowledge or training on the subjects, and they'll just run their mouth like water as though they know everything. And that's the danger on this platform. But one of the things I wanted to really reiterate, and I'm going to give you some stats again that Roland talked about at the beginning of his of the video
Right.
on men and women and DV. Now, these are the global stats. Nearly 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical and or sexual violence in their lifetime. This is from the World Health Organization. Around 840 million women globally are estimated to have experienced partner or SA during their lives. About 316 million women experience physical or SA from an intimate partner in just the last 12 months. Globally, approximately 27% of women aged 15 to 49 who've been in relationships report experience intimate partner violence. The UN reports that around 50,000 women and girls were unalived by intimate partners or family members in 1 year, averaging 137 women and girls unalived every day, or 1 every 10 minutes. The World Health Organization estimates that 38% of all unalivements of women worldwide are committed by intimate partners. The impact on children is 10 million children annually witness some form of DV in the home. Children exposed to abuse are at a higher risk of anxiety, depression, PTSD, substance misuse, and repeating violent relationship patterns later in life. Now, let's talk about the men, because yes, men do suffer in violent relationships as well. They're also affected by domestic violence and intimate partner violence worldwide. Although women are statistically more likely to experience severe injury, SA, and intimate partner unalivement, researchers increasingly stress that male victims are often overlooked, underreported, or stigmatized. So about 11.8% of men experience physical or intimate partner violence, compared with about 15% of women. Men can experience physical abuse, emotional abuse, coercive control, financial abuse, threats, stalking, and psychological violence. 47% of men in the US reported experiencing some sort of intimate partner violence in their lifetime. So the stats are very high for both men and women. I have other countries, but it will take me all day to go through that. So we need to know that it is a problem for both sexes. So it's not funny. It's not a joke. It's not just content for views and clicks and laughter and shits and giggles. It is a serious issue. Anyway, lighten up the mood a bit, Golden, because I just
Okay.
thought I needed to put those stats
Well,
forward.
I'll try. I'll try. But yeah, so I thought that was an excellent first part. We'll be coming back with part two, like I told y'all, and that will be under. Let me go ahead and bring it up back for y'all. The broken mirror. So we'll talk about a little bit of that. That segment pretty much examines, how we analyzing, why our community often fails to serve as a safe haven for its own. And again, when we talk about communities, it can be anybody's community if the shoe fits. And it'll deconstruct the damaging rhetoric, that just pray about it and, just lie in the bed that you made type rhetorics and, things that are said usually is what keeps a lot of people isolated in the same predicament that they're in. So we have to move past just using those type of phrases when someone is going through something. But all of this is really about confronting reality. Over certain situations and predicaments that we can be in, whether we're in it or someone we know is in it. And I would like to go ahead and take this moment to say something really quickly as well.
Sorry, can I, before you say something really quickly,
Sure.
we have the support lines for
Yes,
these anybody facing these issues. And just remember, behind every one of these statistics is a real person, child, or a grieving family. But support is available and you're not alone. You really are
right.
not alone. Seeking help is strength, not weakness. That's my final words.
Absolutely, child. Let me get the fighting balls. Come here. But yes, I absolutely, and we do have the support lines that we've been putting up, y'all, and so you'll see it throughout the live. They are also in the chat. If you can take a screenshot, or if you need to copy and paste, if it's something that you need to use to get help, that is your business. And
Or we'll put it in the description. Shall we put it in the description of the video?
Yeah, I can do that too. I can
Yeah.
copy and paste it, put it all in the description as well. So, like I said, that is your business. But if it's something that is necessary and you feel as though it's needed for you and whatever you may going through or experiencing at this time that may correlate with what we've been talking about on this live, we have provided that here in the chat. That's up on the screen, and I will put it in the description box after I get done with this live of the video if you need to come and get it later. Help is out there, support is out there. People want to talk, people have open arms and open ears. If you are dealing with any of these things, there are people that are open, to talk about that. um I did say one thing earlier. I meant what I said because I do think that it can be a difficult place to be in if you feel as though that you are not getting from a platform or a person on social media, the help or the support that you need. Please take to a professional because I think that that is probably the best route to go. And it's not to say that a content creator or someone out there does not care about your experience, what you've been through and what you're going through, and wants to help you. They just may not have the resources or the know-how to do so because that's not their specialty and what they do, right? But as far as us being kind to one another, that's free. We don't need a PhD or a degree to be able to be kind and open and receptive to one another on this app, right? And I know that there's a lot of people that gather here on this app and we don't know what they're going through. We don't know what their background is, what their life is, what they may be battling or struggling through, right? And kindness can just make that situation or their day that much better. So if we can be that for one another, I think that that helps, right? Even though we can't fix a problem, but we can at least be kind. And so I think that's very important. And I want to say that, with a lot of things that's going on, not just in the world, but on these platforms as well, when we see sometimes unkindness and things like that, you never know how detrimental that could possibly be to someone. We don't know what people are going through, what they're struggling with. They could be, on the verge of something. We can't be sure. We're just meeting people virtually. We don't know, right, what everybody's going through in their life. One of the things that saddens me is that we have too many stories and too many updates now of individuals that are no longer with us, right? And that reason for why they're no longer with us is none of our business, honestly. But what we can at least say is that it's unfortunate, no matter what the encounter was, whether it's positive or negative. Anytime that comes across my feed or my timeline, that's something that is very unfortunate and it saddens me. And so we know that a lot of people are dealing with loss within their own family, within their own life. We know that there's loss happening with individuals we may have come into encounter with here on social media platforms, such as, here where we're at, YouTube and stuff like that. And that's very unfortunate, to that these things are happening, that we're losing people way too soon, in my personal opinion. And so that's something that's never funny. That's never something that I will feel like I'll say anything negatively towards. That's something that always shakes my soul and my spirit because I hate to see that and I hate to find out about those things because it is sad and unfortunate. And so as we go ahead and end out the live, I'm going to end it with a song that I created the very first time that I was feeling these type of emotions when it comes to us losing people and especially losing them way too soon. So we'll close out with that song. Do you have any final thoughts, Imani, before we go?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, obviously, hearing the recent passing of someone who was on this platform, the only thing I can really say about my interaction with that person was I never had a negative interaction with them. I had many conversations and many laughs with that person, and I pray for her family and
Right.
her friends, and grief is hard to heal from, but I hope, you know well, I know she's in a better place, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'll listen to the song, you know She was a good person that when I knew her, and that's how I'll remember her, and I'll remember our conversations and laughs. So yeah, R.I.P.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it's about, you know? And so there is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's going on here on these platforms, fallouts, grifts, anything of that nature. When things like this happen, we have to be able to just put all of that to the side and realize like this is sad. It's very sad and it's very disheartening to know that, you know, people are going too soon. But as we end out the live, I did have make a song, you know, in honor of just, you know, R.I.P. people who are
R.I.P.
going
to
to,
Sassy.
yeah, Sassy Paws. That's what we heard. It was, you know, Sassy Paws is no longer with us. And so that's why I said that. I wanted to make that very clear. I understand how things move and operate, you know, on this internet and on this YouTube streets. I'm not that type of person. I don't care. I don't care about any YouTube back and forth or beef or anything. If anything like that happens, or, you know, even if anybody's in a bad way, like, I'm not going to celebrate any of those things. I
No, I
don't
think
matter.
this
It
is
doesn't
just a
matter
message that
what
we need to look out for one another. We need to really
you
look out for one
do.
another. And
Check
that's
on
what we need
people.
to do.
Check on your people because you never know what somebody is going through. You never know what they're battling with. We can't be sure. I don't know. I'm just saying it's unfortunate. All of these things are very unfortunate. Same thing happened, you know, last year with another person, you know. So it's just, you know, life can be short. We need to do better with the time we have left. But anyway, that's all in the lyrics of the song. Let's go ahead and end it off with that, y'all. And
Yeah, and have a great weekend, everybody. Have a blessed weekend. Take care of yourselves and each other. Okay?
right.
That's it
Yeah.
from me.
All right, girl. Thanks so much
Later.
for joining me on the live. We'll be back with part 2. And I will talk to y'all all very soon. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much for your love and your support. Even if you was in the bushes, I appreciate that too. And I will talk to y'all in the next one. So it's Golden and Imani, and we are out. Bye.
Bye.
Another light gone dark, another star fades out.
Yeah. We lost another one. Yeah. Check the timeline, another face in a frame. Same caption, different name, the hurt remains the same. We scroll past, maybe pause, feel away for a minute. Then it's back to the race, but some ain't get to finish. We saw the smile, the highlight reel, they let us see. Never the weight on their shoulders, a silent plea. Battling demons on the room with the doors all locked. While we was watching the hands go round on the clock. Just a regular person with a story untold. Heart full of warmth that suddenly gone cold. The quiet ones in the corner, the light for the party. You just never know the war that's waged inside somebody's body.
go too soon. Caught between the trials and the pain, though they were reaching for the sun, but got lost in the moon. So let's be kinder the time we have left, 'cause you never know the weight on some love's chest. A final quiet love on the string sword.
Yeah, it's the ripple that hurts the most, the empty space they leave, the memories that haunt the ones who are left to grieve. A mother's child, a partner's love, a ride or die best friend, a storybook that slams shut right before the end. We judge the cover, never reading what's inside the pages. Assume the strength, ignoring all the war that rages. A simple word, a loving gesture, are you good, that's real, could be the very anchor that somebody needs to feel. So check